All right, this is the Catatonic Podcast with your two hosts, George Fowler and
Marcis James.
And we are going to discuss society, how to improve it, how it can be improved, what's wrong in society, and the things that aren't necessarily going the way they should be going, and the corruption that exists inside of it. First topic I guess we could talk about is poverty. Now, with the new presidency and with inflation and with COVID and everything that's happened, what do you think could happen to improve the homelessness crisis and the poverty in general, with inflation, the food prices being high, gas being high, just that kind of is just destroying families in a sense, especially lower income families where people are living by themselves, people who've had to move back in with their parents after going to college or moving out on their own.
Yeah.
How do you think you can improve that?
Well, there's not like a right answer, at least in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, it's too complicated of an issue just to have a like fix all solution. But I feel like if we could like allocate more of our spending, especially like towards other countries, you know what I mean? Like, obviously it's good that we're helping them, but we just have so many problems just to deal with on our own. So like, I feel like if we could just like take some of them resources and put it into like better housing funding, you know what I mean? More like food stamp type spending, you know what I mean? It's just stuff that'll help the lower class people and make it more accessible, you know what I mean? Instead of like having this a whole long-term process of just to get food stamps, you know what I mean? Like, where you could use it right then, because you had food stamps before, right? I've had them, and like it's just, I know I can understand why they'd be stingy, because they don't want people like that don't need to getting them, or you know what I mean? But still, it's too much of a long drawn out process that could just easily be sped up to help people who need it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have that reach out, especially for like when it comes to like just affecting children and stuff. Because I know growing up with food stamps, some months we wouldn't have it just because like they need to recheck something, or it's just I don't know. But yeah, I feel like if we could just allocate some of those resources towards, funding, towards free housing, food, all that stuff, that could really help out people on the streets. Because I feel like if we can clean up our streets, make it more of a welcoming place to be, then we can start focusing on other problems in the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, the homelessness crisis, I believe, is mainly driven by two factors. The first factor is drug addiction and drug abuse, and probably the fact that everything is expensive. But even when it is expensive, I feel like you can get through that. But if you are investing your money solely into quick fix, fast food, drugs, stuff like that, you're going to lose money in the long run, and you're going to end up not having money for a place, and then you're going to be even in more of a depression or slum. It's where you don't even want to live. You don't even want to live outside of your comfort zone. For instance, my father, he's living inside of his van right now, and it seems like he's totally comfortable with it.
Yeah.
He seems totally content with what he has, even though I can tell he's not. It's just become such a new normalcy for him that it's life to him.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens to someone, it's hard to get them out of that slump. It's hard to get them to be, I don't know, like a functioning individual in society.
Yeah, it's almost like once you realize, it's hard to take control of your life at a certain point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to describe it. I feel like if so many things happen to you, at some point it's in human nature to want to give up. You know what I mean? Like, at some point you start feeling just helpless, and it's just, I don't know how best to explain it. I don't know. It's depressing. It really is. Like, with your dad living out of his van, he might seem fine, but maybe he's scared to take the next step. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, taking the first step is the hardest to self-improvement, but it's just, I don't know. It's just it's difficult, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really know the point I'm trying to make.
Well, they say in Alcoholics Anonymous that the reason why the alcoholic is so scared to get sober is because being an alcoholic, they know what's going to happen, even though it's not necessarily a good thing. They know they're going to throw up at the end of the night. They know they're going to fall off the bar stool. They know that they might come home and get into an argument with their wife, or even worse. They know all of that's going to happen, but they don't know what's going to happen when they put the drink down. They don't know if they're going to be comfortable some nights. They don't know if they're going to be able to sleep without drinking.
I've heard that somewhere. Like, it's an answer.
Exactly.
It's an answer. It's something you can predict. Maybe it's like we fall to these cheap, like, these imitations of happiness because it's an answer that we can predict. It's not something that we have to take a risk for. It's low risk, you know what I mean? But when we take a step outside of that and we take that risk, we also take the chance of hurting ourselves more. But at the same time, we have the chance of gaining something even more, you know what I mean? Like, high risk, high reward type thing.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's mentally too much, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, I felt that with, like, even my mom, you know what I mean? I love her to death, but sometimes I feel like she just gets stuck in place because she's just scared. She doesn't know what might happen if she does something that could risk, you know, losing what she has now. And sometimes I feel like that's just something she needs to take. Like, she's been addicted to drugs, you know what I mean? That's run throughout my whole family. My grandma, my uncle, my mom, everyone I know, my dad, all had problems with drugs, and luckily she did come clean not too long ago, but I just it's just really is just like a simple answer, something that you can predict, you know what I mean? And I wish it wasn't like that, you know what I mean? I wish it was more widely accepted that getting help is not hard, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, we have all these, especially for a man, we have all these things that, like, going to therapy or going to get help. It's just not what a man should do, you know what I mean? Yeah. A man should keep to himself, be strong. And I can't say this, it's the same for women like my mom, but I don't know. I just feel like if we could make it easier for people to find help, find it comfortable for getting help, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that would really help all our problems, especially with depression, because I feel like just as a man growing up with the life I've lived, it's harder to talk about things, and it's hard to trust people to understand you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, yeah, people could say they understand you, but how do you truly trust that? You know what I mean? I feel like if we could somehow make it more of a societal norm, which I feel like we are trying to do with just, like, people going out and talking about it. I feel like it's more of a widely brought up topic, but I don't know. I think I got off track a little bit there.
No, but it all has to do with it, because not only is it predictable, like you said, living that lifestyle, you know what's going to happen. It's also uncomfortable to get out of the uncomfortable. There's a saying, you get tired of being sick and tired, but you're going to be sick and tired getting out of that.
Yeah.
You know, like, improving yourself in any aspect of your life, whether you're down in the slums of drug addiction or homelessness, or if you're the average Joe just trying to get big and get fit, you're going to do things that are uncomfortable. You're going to do things that you don't want to do, especially if it's a daily reprieve, like sobriety. You have to be sober every single day, or a form of sobriety every single day. Or if you're really hell-bent on disciplining yourself, you're going to have to do something every single day that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that uncomfortability is very scary for individuals. It's very scary to look at that. You know, when I ran every single day, I walk every single day now, but when I ran it, because of my surgery, for some background information, but when I ran every single day, I would not like to look forward to the next day. That would scare me. I'd be like, oh, fuck, I gotta do this every single morning. When I wake up, it's like scary. It's a scary thought.
I'm feeling that too.
You know what I mean? For some background information, my man Marcus over here is running every single morning. Like
8 days strong.
8 days strong. Like, come on now. That's good stuff. But when you try to face that as a human being, it can be scary, and that scariness will keep you away from improving yourself or improving your circumstances. You know, you're scared of that next step. You're scared of the unknown, and it's terrible. And I feel like it's a problem in society that people give into their wants rather than their needs. You know, going to the McDonald's instead of doing some meal prep.
Yeah.
You know, they give into the more unhealthy option rather than putting the work in and trying to do something that'll help themselves. They go into the more unhealthy option. They spend more money. They just continuously do these things that will not benefit them in the long run. It's just a quick fix.
Yeah.
It's just something that they can get right out of the way and do. And that's an issue in society. It leads to poverty. It leads to addiction. It leads to a lot of negative things. And I feel like it's a reason why society, in an aspect, is so negative, because individuals aren't doing the next right thing for themselves. They're not doing the next right thing that they know will help themselves. They're going to delve into addictions. They're going to delve into the quick fixes. They're going to delve into whatever they want to delve into, rather than looking at it from an outside perspective and saying that this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
I faced addiction, currently facing nicotine addiction. It's a hard battle. And, improving yourself is the same aspect. It's, you rather do what's comfortable and what's known than taking the next step to do what you need to do in life. And I feel like that affects society. And social media seems to enhance this to a point. There's all different types of pages or outlets on social media. You got your, fucking pothead pages, you know what I'm saying, where all they post about is weed and smoking weed. And that could be good for someone who needs it. But then someone who doesn't need it, someone who's a drug addict, someone who knows they can't smoke weed, but they view this content and it gets them to want to do it.
Yeah.
But then there's the positive aspects of social media, with the people that are improving themselves, spreading positivity, and there's two different aspects to it. And I feel like that there's no right and wrong answer when it comes to these things. There's always a gray area.
Yeah.
Always a gray area when it comes to this type of deal. Now, do you think social media is improving society in a way, or do you think it's being negative, or do you think there's a gray area there? What do you think?
It's definitely in a gray area for me. And the reason I say that is because it's great that we have a fast way of raising awareness for certain topics, you know what I mean? But I also feel like it's too much information. I don't feel like at this current point in time humans are meant to have as much information as they do. Because as we sit here, I feel like we use the problems of like other people, other societies as an excuse to ignore our own. You know what I mean? Like, say, like you said, are battling addiction. You can hop on TikTok, look at someone else doing the same thing, just worse, and it makes you feel better because, like, oh wait, I'm not as bad as them. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's just it subverts the problem. You know what I mean? It gives you an escapist ideology. You know what I mean? It makes you think like, yeah, what I'm doing is not that good, but it's not as worse as the next guy. You know what I mean? It almost, and in some cases, like with weed and like nicotine and stuff, it almost glorifies it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, me, like you can see plenty of the memes like saying like me and the bros when we get high or something. You know what I mean? Like it adds a certain novelty to it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Like almost supporting it.
Yeah.
When it really, in reality, it's not good for you. But that's just with social media in general. Like, it blows everything out of proportion in a way that it's just not good for the human condition, human spirit. And it's just, in general, not good. Like, it distracts you from just going outside, too. It's just, overall, it's just, I don't know. I love social media for the fact that it can connect people. Like, there's plenty of the good aspects for social media and the internet. It's just, it can connect people. It can get people in touch, you know what I mean? Yeah. If you haven't seen a lost relative in a while, you can go connect with them over that, meet up, find a place to meet up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just all the negatives. I feel like all the negatives outweigh the goods, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. It's too much almost.
Well, to a point, I feel like there's a major gray area there, like you said, with social media. And social media glorifying things, it glorifies plenty of negative things, like the pornography, all that stuff. Social media will definitely tend to glorify, but in the same aspect of things, those things that it's glorifying aren't always necessarily negative in a sense. Like you said, like with the memes, like getting high with the boys and stuff. It's okay to, like you said, like it's okay to go out once in a while, chill with the boys, have a couple drinks, kick back. It's okay. But when you glorify it and you're constantly absorbing that content over reels or shorts or whatnot, you're constantly having that in your brain, that's all that's going to be bouncing around in there.
Yeah.
You have no outside point of view because that's all you watch. You know, I feel like it's the same thing with politics in a way. Because your For You page is just what you watch.
Exactly.
You know, and I feel like that's a negative aspect of social media is that you're only getting one opinion or one side of the story.
It's biased.
It is biased.
It's your own opinion reflected back at you. So
exactly, there's no variety there. You're not going to see someone else's opinion on a topic because you don't get anyone else's opinion. You only get what you like, which isn't life. Life is about dealing with things that you don't like. And then you see people like this in the real world. You see people who argue the fact constantly, especially with politics. People freaking out in public over politics. You know, it does have an effect on society.
Yeah.
Certain policies and certain things can be negative for society. I'm not saying that, you know, politics don't have an effect and that some people are wrong for speaking out, but it's the people that are in the middle of the McDonald's raging about something they just seen on TikTok to a guy that's on the other political spectrum. You know, the people that can't have a conversation about politics, they have to have an argument. They can't just sit down and chill. I feel like those are the people that are influenced the most through social media, through the constant negative feedback.
Yeah.
Or the constant feedback loop. Not necessarily negative, it can be negative, but depending upon what you're watching, but it's a constant feedback loop of your opinion. Now, if you have a good opinion, say if you're watching a lot of stuff on self-improvement, or a lot of stuff on discipline, just good things, that can be a good thing. You know, you go on your social media page and all you're seeing is stuff about improving yourself. You know, stop scrolling, you know, work out, you know.
I feel like that could also be almost like a double-edged sword, though. Because, like, at least for me, what I experience on, like, my social media, like, I always see, like you said, self-improvement, these bodybuilders, but I feel like some of that stuff is just straight unattainable, you know what I mean? It makes you strive for something that you're likely never to achieve, you know what I mean? Like, I'm never going to be a Ronnie Coleman up on stage, fucking 2% body fat, 200-pound monster, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I just, it gives you, it can make you have unrealistic expectations for yourself, and I feel like that's the double-edged sword with that. You know what I mean? Self-improvement. It can make you expect certain things that just are not possible for the average man, at least. You know what I mean? Like I said, but like you said, it's good. It's good for motivation. Like, especially if you are not happy with your current self, it can give you almost a comfort in the fact that people are just like you. You know what I mean? They need to be improved, but it can also have the overstimulating effect of just you're just not making you think you're not good enough, which you are. You're good enough for yourself, and if you want to improve yourself, that is even better. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just feel like almost everything with social media, in my opinion, is like a double-edged sword. You can always have too much, but I don't know.
Well, to go back on what you're saying, I mean, there is unrealistic expectations, but I feel like for every human being, anything is possible. Yeah. No matter what you're trying to achieve, but it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Now, when you're constantly seeing different things, different viewpoints about people, I guess you could say different viewpoints about people, but you see people at the top of their game. But you're seeing people at the top of different games. You see like Ronnie Coleman, or you see the writer Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know, you see Joe Rogan. You see these people, they're all in different aspects of life. And like you said, you can get overstimulated because you see these people that are at the top of their game and you reflect on yourself that you're not there. You know, that's when you can kind of put an unrealistic expectation on yourself because you believe that you should be there now, which you shouldn't. Yeah. It takes years and years of hard work to get to that point. And when you're trying to get to that point, when you're watching these things constantly and you have I guess you could say a cluttered mindset on it, a mindset of I should be there now, you're going to create negativity in your own life because that might create anger within you or sadness within you that might distract you from your goals. You might sit around and get angry at others around you, take out like outbursts, you know, because you're not where you want to be, but you're there. You're improving yourself, but you don't see that because you're constantly seeing people at the top of their game, you know, and that can be a reflection of society. People like with women especially, they see women like models that it's an unrealistic body standard. Those models have put so much work in over years, going to the gym, not eating. They put that in, they put the work into it. And most women and men with bodybuilders, it takes work to do that, but they're not willing to put that work in.
Yeah.
They just see that and they're constantly seeing that and they're becoming depressed or angry about that. And it's not right. That could be an answer to why so many people are depressed. And I think it is an answer on why so many people are depressed and angry in our society
Yeah.
is because they see these unrealistic standards. They're achievable. Don't get me wrong, they are achievable. Anything's achievable in life. But when you're constantly seeing that and you reflect back on yourself and you're not there, you can become angry, you can become depressed, and you take that out on the people around you,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't right. And then if you're constantly in that mode, you're affecting others negatively rather than positively, and those people affect others negatively, it'll create a negative outlook on society.
It can even like lead into like addictions and stuff. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like getting high or something to ignore that problem that you're feeling, even though it's completely unjustified and just brought upon you by social media. And that I feel like, especially with our generation, that could be a reason for like a lot of younger people's substance abuse is social media and unrealistic expectations of yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I feel like another thing is people use substances to get to a certain point. They use weight loss substances to lose weight.
like steroids and stuff.
Well, steroids, yes, but there's even a darker aspect to that. I know a woman who she was a dancer, she still is a dancer,
Mm.
and she was very self-conscious of the way she looked. She was in an abusive relationship with a man who would always comment about her body, and she would go to the gym and she'd work her ass off.
Yeah.
But then she stopped going to the gym, she started blowing up here and there, she started using drugs, and she came in contact with something called crack. Now, if you do crack, you don't want to eat. Same thing with meth. I don't think she was doing meth, but she was doing crack.
Hmm.
And you don't want to eat, right? And it speeds up your metabolism. You do crack 3-4 days in a row, and you don't eat anything, you're going to lose weight.
Yeah.
And it got to the point when I seen this woman again, maybe a month later, after she started doing this, looked like a totally different person, skinny as ever. You know what I'm saying? And that's nasty. That's like not nasty in a disgusting way, but nasty in a mental way. It's like you're destroying yourself at that point. You're destroying your own body at that point because you are, I guess that's a form of anorexia.
Hmm.
And it doesn't even take substances. People will just stop eating and they become anorexic and they have a body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
They look at themselves in the mirror and they don't see what they really like want to see.
Hmm.
And they see this negative part of themselves and they still think they're fat or they still think they're too big and they continue not to eat or they continue to use these substances that are negatively impacting their health. Luckily, she stopped doing crack. The only thing she's doing now is smoking weed, which is, even though it's not necessarily the best thing, it's a lot better than what she was doing.
Yeah.
Props for her getting off the alcohol and all the other hard drugs. And anyone can do that. Anyone can get out of that slump. It just takes work. And it takes not only physical work, but it takes mental work. It takes journaling, sitting with yourself. It's another negative aspect of social media is its addicting quality.
Mm.
It takes away the aspect of sitting with self. Rather than just, say like 100 years ago before TV was invented, people were just reading books.
Yeah.
They're tired of reading a book. They put the book down. They put the newspaper down. They're sitting with themselves. They have time to think to themselves, to just chill with themselves, to really get an outlook on life. Maybe journal some. They can put shit in perspective. They can put stuff into perspective. My bad for my language.
Hmm.
But nowadays, you don't have that anymore because, especially with addiction, especially how people act in society, always looking for that quick fix. They're bored, sitting in a chair, might light up a cigarette, might light a joint up, go on the phone, scroll, crack a can of beer, scroll, stop at McDonald's real quick.
Yeah.
And the scrolling is really where it's at because you're not sitting with yourself. You just whip out the phone, start scrolling.
It's easy too.
It is. It's just right there.
It's in your pocket. Everybody has one. You know what I mean? You just, like you say, you whip it out and scroll it. And the amount of time that eats up is insane. Like, you ever had one of those like just scroll sessions like right before bed? You just up for like another hour just scrolling.
Yeah.
It's insane how much time that burns. And like, time is, we don't get that back.
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's done. You know what I mean? One moment to the next. That's how we live. And so having something so easily like just available take up that much time to me is just insane. And I'm younger, so I have that big problem just doom scrolling too. But I've been trying to fix that like with daily runs. That helps me get my mind off things. Helps me think in the moment. You know what I mean? Or just like going to the gym. I like going to the gym a lot. That just I don't even listen to music in the gym no more. So I don't know why. Like it just kind of zoned out for me. I don't. There's no specific reason. I don't listen to music on runs. I don't listen to music in the gym. I just work out and just. I guess it's because it leaves me alone with my thoughts. It just. It's almost therapeutic, if that makes sense. Like I'm thinking, but I'm working my body too. It feels natural.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can explain it. And I feel like just more people need to find that their own vice like that, you know what I mean, through art or expressing themselves through maybe even posting on social media, you know what I mean, like content creation, just something that makes you really feel like one with yourself.
Yeah.
Something that gets you out of that just I need to scroll on TikTok for 5 hours straight. Something that needs you like gets you out the house, something that actually feels like you're gives your life meaning almost. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the direction we need to go, especially with a lot of our younger generation who just copy what they see on social media, which I have also another big problem with, like trends. You know what I mean? Stuff that goes viral and people do, especially when ends up like harming people. Like a while back with all the pranks, the YouTube pranks and stuff that were going around, like people going out and just basically harassing people
Yeah.
just for a couple views on YouTube. That always pissed me off. Like you're making your presence known in these random people's lives that they don't even know what's going on. You know what I mean? And in some cases, you're making them out to almost be a villain for just to not know what's going on and reacting a certain way, which never, I never really understood how that could even be funny. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just, it's crazy what people can do to justify like getting views, I guess.
Well, I feel like it's another form of addiction in a way. And when you look at this from an outside point of view, kind of switching topics here,
Hmm.
but it's something that I've been thinking about. Do you think that certain, because everyone scrolls and they get their own bias,
Yeah.
do you think that certain things impact different individuals? For instance, like woke culture. Woke culture, I got nothing against it. It can be a little idiotic sometimes, no offense.
Yeah.
But the stuff that they're seeing, it's all negative against another form of political view or another form of culture. It's all negative. Now, do you think that affects certain people? Like, do you think social media affects certain groups of people, like certain races,
Oh yeah.
people of different sexuality? Like, what do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%. That goes back to like the algorithm we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
It it caters content specifically towards you and your beliefs. So like you were saying with the woke culture, that'll definitely resonate with more extremist type personalities. You know what I
yeah,
mean? People who are willing to just stake an entire argument on the fact that they know something that they think is right and they think you're wrong. You know what I mean? That'd be
yeah,
their entire argument. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm not hearing you out about that.
yeah,
And like with woke culture, like you were saying, that's just it's an extreme and it's an extremist ideology that resonates heavily with those type of people. You know
mhm,
what I mean? They don't need an excuse. It's just I'm right, you're wrong. So yeah, and the fact that social media just elevated that to such an extent where it actually like got younger kids actually thinking that that's the right way to live. Like no offense, obviously, but I just personally I don't think that's a right way to look at things. I don't think
yeah,
there's except necess I can't necessarily there it is. Uh one true ideology.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like to go not to go deep into politics, but the fact that we have like two just major parties, you know what I mean?
yeah,
That just feel like each election are becoming more extreme in one side or the other.
yeah,
Like these past couple elections, I felt like they were just so much unnecessary hate towards the other party when in the reality it's just a separate of ideals.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like this recent election, I was hearing a whole bunch of people like saying that like how either side, if we choose either one, we're just going to go to war or
yeah,
like something extremely bad's going to happen, the world's going to end. But it's just a battle of ideologies. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And I just I don't feel like there's just no need for that type of hate for another man just to think a separate way. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
Well, For instance, with a lot of the during COVID-19, with the Black Lives Matter stuff and all
Hmm.
that, with the riots and stuff like that. Now, some of those riots were incited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like most of them were, because most of those protests were 100% peaceful at first. Now, why were they incited? I have no idea.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I have no idea why they were. From what I understand, probably to make one side look better, make one side look worse than the other. You know what I mean? And I feel like social media, when they target certain people with constant negative feedback loops on another side,
Hmm.
it can cause even more problems than there really is. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure how to describe it, but I feel like nowadays, the most, I guess, discriminated against race that I've seen with my own eyes. Now, I'm a white male, so
Hmm.
I have a white male point of view. You know what I mean? I was raised in a broken home, poverty. I was homeless before, so I've seen it, and now I live a really good life. As you can see, I got a nice jacket on. I live with my aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live a great life now. But being poor in a really crappy school and then kind of leveling up to a little bit better of a school, a little bit better of a neighborhood, the one thing that I've seen people discriminate the most against are gay people. You know what I'm saying? Lesbians, gays, and Asians.
Really.
Yeah, like think about it. If you're making jokes, like if we're busting racist jokes, which
Hmm.
I feel like most people do, I feel like, black people, they get a lot of smoke, okay, right?
Hmm.
But like if you're out in public and someone makes a racist joke against an Asian or an Indian, it's not really like, or like a ginger person, it's not really like shamed upon. It's not like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
like the one race you can still kind of crack at in public and no one gets overly angry. Same thing. Now, it's a little bit less with the gay people. I feel like, if you call someone like a faggot in public, it's like, yo, calm down, brother.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I feel like it's still not nearly as looked down upon as if you were to be like racist towards a Hispanic person or an African American person.
Hmm.
I feel like there's different levels of it almost. And as an African American male, what do you think of, like, have you experienced racism?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like,
Yeah.
not necessarily in Delaware, but when I went out of state, like I think it was somewhere in Alabama, I got called the N word. I didn't really think of it that. Well, I did get called the N word one time up north in Wilmington.
Hmm.
I don't remember it. I was a little kid, but apparently I was with my cousins and they yelled it at me. I don't know. There you
Yeah.
go. Most of my family's white, so people do call me whitewashed for that, but
Yeah.
I don't really see the point of it. Point of that when I'm just black, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've definitely had some racial experience. No, not in school though. For me, because I've went to a lot of different schools growing up. You know what I mean? I've
Hmm.
been to schools in Wilmington, uh, Dover, Milford, even like Middletown. I've been to all schools all over the state, right? And from my experience, the one thing that just wasn't just in common was like if you weren't necessarily part of like a group, you were just automatically just bullied or something. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you didn't have friends, no matter the race, no matter the gender, you know what I mean? You would just get bullied. And I feel like you were saying with gay people and stuff, since they at the time we were growing up, there was like it was unknown to a lot of kids.
Yeah.
I feel like that's also why, because it was something unknown. You know what I mean? It was not common at the time.
Yeah.
So like plus to other people it could come off as weird and like I said unknown. And for kids at least, even though we might not think it at the time or think anything bad of it, it's just something we don't know, so we make fun of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like how do I mean, I've also I'm not proud of it, but I did a little bit of bullying, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now that I'm looking back on it, I did a little bit of bullying as a kid, you know what I mean? I would make fun of people, but you know, it's just I wasn't aware, you know what I mean? I was just hanging out with the boys. I feel like also a lot of bullying stems from or a lot of making fun of like other groups stems from the fact that you're in a group yourself.
Yeah.
You're not alone in this feeling, I guess. You're not alone in that opinion. And that can amplify the hate towards certain groups, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's about it. I don't, yeah, like just what I was saying from all my experiences in the schools and stuff. I just just whoever, I guess, in that school just wasn't popular. It might sound stereotypical, just like I guess the quote unquote losers of the school. Those were mostly discriminated against.
Yeah,
And it doesn't really come down to race or your sexual orientation or like who you believe you are.
yeah.
It's just a matter of, I guess, who you know, which I don't know.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
It's actually, from what I've observed, it's pretty correct.
Hmm.
I mean, when I was younger, I mean, like in fifth grade, this gay kid would get bullied all the time. I was a part of it, not proud of it.
Yeah.
I look back on it, I was a little asshole. You know what I'm saying? But as we went to middle school and into high school, especially like late middle school, high school, like you said, it was always the losers or the kids that didn't have a big friend group, the kids that were kind of sitting alone at the lunch table,
Hmm.
especially guys. I
Yeah.
mean, being a guy, I don't know what it's like for a girl, but the loner girls, like the girls that were kind of alone, kept to themselves, I never really noticed them getting like physically bullied. Maybe
Hmm.
that's because it's more online for girls. I'm not sure. But for guys, like I noticed like the kids that were by themselves, the dudes that were by themselves that were loners, and they weren't tough either. They
Hmm.
were small, skinny kids. Or like even they could have been big and fat, but those were the kids that would get made fun of. The
And
kid, you know what I'm saying?
do you think that's like almost like a byproduct of the almost like mutual agreement that you be able to handle this as a guy? Like,
To a point, yeah. I feel like if you were to just if you're a bully, right?
mhm,
And there's like some girl sitting at the end of the lunch table, and you like call her out, you call her fat or something.
yeah,
I feel like you're gonna get looks. You're gonna be
mhm,
like, yo, why you calling that chick fat? Like,
yeah,
tough
she's a
love.
girl. Like, why are you
Yeah,
doing that? Especially from guys.
yeah. But then when you look at like a guy, if a guy's like, yo, look at that fucking weird kid at the end of the lunch table. Look how weird he looks.
Yeah,
People are gonna laugh. People aren't really gonna even bat an eye. It's like, oh, it's just guys being guys. It's
yeah,
normal. But in all reality, it's not normal. It's harsh. It's mean.
hmm
It's it's discrimination almost. It's not necessarily discrimination to a certain creed or race or gender or sexual orientation. It's just being mean to someone because they won't be able to defend themselves or that no one else will be able to defend them.
it's almost like we place ourselves in a hierarchy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you see someone that you perceive as lower than you, then people with that same mindset group together, and it forms almost a hierarchy. Which I don't know why we do that. That Now that I'm thinking about it, that doesn't really make a lot of sense that we would do that to ourselves. We're all equal, you know what I mean? We're all human beings. So the fact that we would almost place ourselves in a sort of hierarchy, especially as such a youth, maybe that comes from like, I guess, social media, growing up in the day information age, just seeing all of what we know. I'm not sure.
Well, I feel like it goes back even farther than that. All right, think
Hmm.
about it. I think when we're kids, we're a little bit more primal. We're going a lot more off our instincts
Yeah.
rather than just pure thoughts or pure like thinking about you're going to do something and you take 10 seconds to think about what you're going to do.
Yeah.
When you're a little kid, you're like, I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're super smart. But I feel like it goes back to when we're cavemen. Think about it.
Hmm.
If you're a caveman, you're big and strong. You know what I'm saying? You're killing all the antelopes. You're
Hmm.
gonna get the girls. And now you're a group of big, strong cavemen, you know what I'm saying? Or you're a group of big, like, cave women that are all really good at gathering,
Yeah.
all really good at taking those resources up. That's a good thing. You're helping the tribe. But if you're like that, the weak caveman,
Hmm.
who gets, like, horse kicked by an antelope across the field, can't really do anything,
Yeah.
or if you're like a little like stupid and you don't know which berries to pick and you pick a poisonous mushroom or poisonous berry and
Hmm.
half the tribe dies, evolutionarily that's not good.
Yeah.
That's like a negative thing. So I think when you're a little cave boy and you see like that weird cave kid who's like kind of to himself, not really the smartest, not really the strongest, kind of off in the background, instinctively you're like, yo, what is this guy doing in the tribe? He's
Hmm.
not going to help us. Like deep down in your instincts, you're like, this guy's not going to help us. Now, like you said, it's totally different now. We live in the day of information. We live as people with all equal rights, but back then, their equal rights wasn't even a thought.
Yeah.
It was like if you're doing something good for the tribe, you're good. If you're doing something bad for the tribe, we're gonna kick you out or kill you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that stems to now, with war.
Hmm.
It's like if you're not doing good for the world, if you're doing something negative to people, we're gonna kill you, rather than trying to figure out the situation. And with Hitler, you had to kill him.
Yeah.
There was no exceptions there. You had to stop the Nazis. But like with Palestine and Israel, I think they've been warring for like hundreds of years at this point. There's been no agreement between governments, or there's been no like talking point to where it's like, all right, guys, let's stop this. It's been
Yeah.
going on for hundreds of years. Like this is ludicrous. But instead, they're still like, sort of still going off of their basic instincts. They're not saying, okay, they have a different point of view. We'll leave them be. It's cool. They're still going off of, well, they don't have the same point of view as me. They could be a threat to me. I want to attack them first.
Yeah.
And it's a constant war rather than people rather than just chilling. And that's a thing on society. Why people argue so much. I'm right, you're wrong. And I feel like that's a problem with not only society but the world in general. That people are not open. They're not open to. They're not open to other point of views. They're not open to other ideas. Their ideas are right. There's no other ones that are right. I'm right. You're wrong. The me versus you mentality. You know, and that could lead to harm because you're trying to do something, and if you continuously try that and it hurts other people, but you still have that mentality, you don't care that you're hurting other individuals.
Yeah.
You don't care about that. You care about yourself and what you're doing. And it's a terrible thing. And that goes all the way back to the beginning of humans, to the beginning when we were just animals. That's how it is when you're an animal. It's a me versus you mentality type world. But we're not in that world anymore. We're people,
Yeah.
conscious, aware beings that need to help each other, really. We need to stop focusing so much on ourselves, and we need to focus outwardly on others. Now, don't get me wrong, we need to help ourselves. We can't help anyone else until we help ourselves. But if we're good, if we are, pretty decent off in life, and you see some guy struggling, why not help him? Even if you're struggling a little bit, help someone else. That might help you. Helping someone else might help you in the long run.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my point of view on it. Why people bully people. I guess that was a long tangent, but going back to the beginning of the topic, why people are discriminated against, even race versus race, it's because it's been like that. You feel as if that other race or that weird kid in school or that sexuality, or even with men and women, you feel like women doing something or men doing something, it's threatening to you. So deep down, you're going to attack back. You're going to show even harsher emotion back, or just trying to destroy the quote unquote threat outright.
Yeah.
Like how we made a lot of the animals during the Ice Age go extinct. We just killed them first before they could harm us, and I feel like that's where a lot of, like, during the 1920s, a lot of the KKK attacks on African American individuals. I feel like deep down, even though they weren't a threat at all, instinctively, like being almost animalistic in nature, these people were going out and lynching people of another race or religion, Jews and stuff like that, because they felt threatened almost, or they felt as if they were threatened, that these people were going to destroy what they have, even though they're totally wrong and almost insane for thinking that way.
I'm not going to claim to have too much knowledge on that topic because I just don't research it that much. Yeah, I've only researched it in school when we had to, but from what I know, that was a lot of like slave owners. I want to say necessary white people because there was a whole bunch of like even diversity back then and like who owned slaves, I guess. It's just everybody who owned slaves or like had something to do with slavery aside from being a slave. That was their main concern if freeing them all. Like, what about what they would do to us? You know what I mean? Like, how would they fight back? How would they even react to that type of freedom? What would they do? And that was one of the main problems with like the Civil War we had. You know what I mean? It was just the South wanting more traditional ways, and the different and the northern country, the northern states just wanting like everybody to have equal rights. You know what I mean? So it's also curious how when people form a suppression of us of another group, you know what I mean? It gets to a point where even if they want to free them, they're scared that they might do something to them, so it keeps it going. So that I feel like that's also what halts us in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Especially with other countries. Like if the U.S. like got rid of all our nukes, you know what I mean, all our weaponry, yeah, it would be nice for the greater world in theory. Then again, that also leaves us defenseless. You know what I mean? For other countries to come and take, which just for by human nature, that's tempting for other people. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you were to lower all your defenses, then it's like, yeah, I'm doing this for the betterment of the human race. But people, not all people, have that same mentality. You know what I mean? and that's just one of the many things we're facing in life, especially with other countries.
100%.
Hmm.
Now, I feel like this has a lot to do with corruption in a sense,
Oh yeah,
because corruption in politics and like systemic racism, stuff like that, it all harkens back to the human instinct of threat, of being threatened or being out for yourself, trying to
yeah,
better yourself over others, or threatening or going after someone else because you feel as if they're going to harm you in a way. And it's all basic instinct. It's all basic human urge almost.
hmm
It's almost like going like there's a line in the Bible. Grab my phone real quick and read just a couple screenshots of it. Figured it come in handy for the podcast, but
but check it out. Can't remember what it is.
yeah, it's from Homeland.
Yeah, we're at 45 minutes.
Nice.
And time passes quickly when you're having a conversation.
It does. Okay. So I feel like this has a lot to do with what we're talking about right now.
Hmm.
Because when we go with our instincts, our more animalistic side, it creates a lot of negative things. You go with that selfish side of yourself.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what the animalistic side harkens back to, not only being, horny or threatening or angry, it also goes back to being selfish because you need to survive in order to procreate and create more of the species
yeah.
evolutionarily. You know, this is a quote from Galatians 5:15 NIV. I went to Catholic school a little bit
Yeah.
when I was younger, but I'm not totally educated on this. But for the flesh desires what is contrary to the spirit, and the spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, and hypocrisy, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambitions, selfish decisions, and factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Hmm.
Now, I feel like that can be interpreted many different ways. Straightforward, it
Yeah.
says if you give into these acts of the flesh, you're gonna go to hell. But I feel like hell and heaven are a little too black and white. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I don't believe in God, but I don't necessarily believe in a. I believe in a heaven of sorts, but I don't believe in a heaven or hell. Like you're gonna go to one or the other. But I
Mm.
do believe that when you're far away from God or spirit or the universe, that it is almost like a hell. When it gets that slump of depression.
That's actually at least I don't go to church often, but when I do, that's what the pastor I go to talks about. Hell is not a place; it's the absence of God. That is what she describes hell as. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's not somewhere you go to be punished or like tormented over for like things you did on the earth. It's the being without love. You know what I mean? Like after you die, anything could happen. You know, we just don't know. But in her eyes and my own too, I believe this too, that it's just you just you're being without love. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the greatest hell you can give a man or a human. You know what I mean? It's the absence of a feeling. You know what I mean? Just nothing, nothingness. That is like a true hell to me. That's one of my greatest fears. You know what I mean? Like becoming a man with nothing to lose. Like I lose everything. That's something everybody fears. So I feel like that's what that kind of means when it comes to hell or heaven. I feel that's what you're talking about. It's not black or gray or black or white. You know what I mean? It's just hmm, I don't know. It's just I lost my train of thought. I'm keeping it a buck.
Yeah, it's all good, man. I understand what you're saying, though. I feel like when you give into quote unquote acts of the flesh, when you are selfish, when you are impure in a way, when you're not doing the next right thing for the others around you, it can be like hell because you cut yourself off from people around you's love.
Mm,
When you act selfish, when you act only for yourself, when you act only for pleasure, um, it's terrible, and I feel like this can go into many different things. but mainly with corruption in society, racism, stuff like that, you're acting on basic instincts. You're acting on a basic ideology that you've had since you were probably young. Since you were probably born, you were born into it, you know nothing else. You're not willing to open your mind. You're not willing to open up who you are and challenge your own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going off of what you know, and that could be a threatening feeling or that could be a negative feeling, and you're just going off of that, spreading hatred, or spreading corruption.
Yeah.
As we were saying earlier, with like the McDonald's food and the heroin dealer up the street. I know this is crazy, but right,
Mm-hmm.
if you own a McDonald's or the school system, for instance, selling unhealthy processed food constantly, that's bad for someone. That, like, for instance, there's studies showing that people in their 20s are getting colon cancer now.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly people that have gone to public school districts, right? They're eating processed food that is considered a carcinogen from age 5 to 18.
Yeah.
When you look at that, that sounds pretty bad. You're feeding something that is considered a carcinogen to 5-year-olds all the way up to 18 in the crucial years of development. And you're doing it because it's cheaper and because it makes money.
Mm-hmm.
The school system's doing that. Places like McDonald's are doing that. And it's terrible.
Yeah.
And they're doing it for their own gain, for their own selfish gain in a way. And it's almost the same exact thing. Maybe to a lesser extent, but it's almost the same exact thing as the heroin dealer that lives in the hood.
Yeah.
He's dealing out deadly drugs that could kill people any day of the week because he wants money. And if someone goes on his block and starts selling drugs, he's going to shoot and kill them because it interrupts his flow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I get what you're saying. It's like, it's the same thing, just over a different period of time.
Yes.
One's more short term. One's more of a short term problem, like with heroin stuff that you only need a couple doses and you're done. But like you were saying with the food industry or with the fast food industry and like public schools and the carcinogens and stuff, that's like something that over a couple years can start to catch up to you, and that's why a lot of times it goes unnoticed and the studies are only coming out now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It takes a while for that to take effect. While like drugs and stuff, that's just almost immediate. You know what I mean? There's an immediate effect, and I feel that's also a lot of problem that comes back to like time and stuff. Like just a lot of our problems stem from the fact that we we don't necessarily have the time, or younger generations don't feel like time is certainly a factor in the after effects of certain things.
Yeah.
Like with vapes and stuff, it's just I'm not gonna say necessarily they're bad or necessarily they're good, but like I just feel like there's not been enough time for them to really prove in one or the other. You know what I mean?
Flavors and shit. I
Yeah.
smoked a couple of them vapes. They taste like Coca-Colas, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
How the fuck are you going to make it taste like a Coca-Cola? That's pretty whack in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and like everybody I know just talks about like how it just needs time, but we're humans, you know what I mean? We're impatient,
Yeah.
and we seek out what's in the moment. You know what I mean? And with these schools and these fast food, they're making money off that. You know what I mean? They're making money off that short term fix, and we're not thinking about the long term effects that it could have on our bodies.
Yeah.
And that's just something I feel like as a society we have to get smarter about. As no, not even society, as a human race, we have to get smarter about.
Yeah.
Because I can only imagine how it is in other countries with even worse like hygiene, hygiene conditions, everything. Like, have you seen like the fucking clips of like Indians kind like meat with their toes and shit? Like,
Nah.
it's crazy. Like they get nasty over there. It's insane. It's just so whatever. I don't know. It's a crazy world we live in.
Well, I feel like I was in business class the other day, and I sit with a couple of people that have pretty we'll say I don't know, I don't want to call it racist because I wouldn't say they're outright racist, but they have pretty what's that word you said earlier with the woke people? The
Extremist
yeah,
ideologies.
they have like little extremist ideologies, right? And one of them is Pakistani, and he does not necessarily like Indians. He doesn't have a problem with them. He's not like outright racist towards them if he sees them, but he grew up, not like an Indian because they pretty much just like they didn't enslave his country, but they owned his country, and his country annexed from India, Pakistan,
Yeah.
And he made a joke. He was like, "Let's go see how dirty India is." He went on Google Maps and he put up like a TikTok of like India and how dirty it is.
Hmm.
And It's kind of sad in a way that there's places like that in America as well that are
Yeah.
just like Kensington,
Oh, 100%.
absolutely dirty.
Just in like any major city, you're gonna find slums. You're gonna find streets littered with garbage. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's a negative point of it's a negative point about modern society and the world is that people don't necessarily care about their environment or what's around them.
Hmm.
They don't care about the people around them, they don't care about the environment around them, and they just end up throwing the trash everywhere. And it's not even necessarily like it's a selfish thing because they've been brought up that way.
Yeah.
They've been brought up not to care about the environment around them, and it's absolutely terrible. It's like wow, you know, and how dirty some people can be. For instance, when I was living in an abandoned house, I
Hmm.
was showering for the most part, but we were living in a pretty dirty area. There was
Yeah.
like cat shit on the ground from like 3 years before because the person's cat that lived there got trapped in the house with the dogs.
Hmm.
It was downright nasty, but we cleaned it up. We made it pretty nice. I was showering almost every day after we got the water turned on and
Yeah.
everything like that. But at first, we were pretty damn dirty. It was dirty. It was nasty.
I can relate to that.
Yeah,
Like I went to a certain point in my life without electricity, you know what I mean? So we
yeah,
would have to like heat water up on a kerosene heater, put in like one of those shower things and like trickle water down. So
yeah.
I can understand that to a point. And that house was just should just been like demoed. It did get demoed recently too. So but yeah, I could. It wasn't necessarily abandoned, but it was pretty damn fucking close, man.
Yeah. And that harkens back to just society in general and the negative slum point of view of society.
Hmm.
Most people nowadays that talk about equal rights, that talk about culture, that talk like a lot of woke people. I wouldn't say all of them because there's probably some that have experienced this,
Yeah.
but almost every woke person I've met in school has never experienced poverty at its worst. They've never experienced a close relative of theirs shooting heroin up in the bathroom.
Hmm.
They've never experienced homelessness. They've never experienced having to work for money at
Yeah.
a young age to get a meal. They've never experienced that, but they're going to sit here and talk about how they don't have rights or how this group of people don't have rights. When in all reality, I feel like the class that gets the most discrimination is the person who doesn't have money.
Hmm.
The person who doesn't have money has no right
Yeah.
because they don't have money.
In this world, money is power.
Exactly. And I feel like even though there is definitely racism, there's definitely racism in the school system. I was talking with a professor, or not a professor, a teacher
Hmm.
in Philadelphia yesterday when I went up there for my uncle's birthday. And he was talking about how the school system is almost 100% racist because the schools in Philadelphia
Hmm.
are a lot less funded. They're a lot less, like, especially the public schools, they're a lot less managed. The teachers and staff there are paid like, not really that well.
Yeah.
And those are where most of your African Americans live are in inner city areas. And he was talking about how they just want to raise people who not only just African Americans, but poor people who live in inner city areas, which are
Hmm.
mainly African Americans, mainly Hispanics. They just want to raise them up to be peons, to be workers,
Yeah.
to just be the workforce. And that is racist to a point that is very negative. But I
Hmm.
feel like that also harkens back to poverty. Like my boy Rory is African American, but he lives a great life. He has both of his parents. He's living the dream almost.
Hmm.
And it harkens back to the money factor. Most people who don't have money are going to live in areas where it's cheap. Where is it cheap? Where there's a lot of shootings, where
Yeah.
there's a lot of drugs, where areas where real estate is
Undesirable
dropping.
places to live.
Exactly. You know,
And I forget what I was gonna say. Something about money. Uh, Give me a sec. I completely lost my train of thought. I don't know why that happens. It's like my brain just goes numb.
it was happening to me all at the beginning of the podcast. I thought I was shitting myself.
Nah, it's all good. I'm just trying to think of. But anyway, to continue what you were saying with just like I wouldn't necessarily call it racism. I would call it to me it aligns more with like classism. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like you were saying, poverty. Poor households. They can't afford as much, so they get sent to these lower funded schools because it's not a priority. They're just meant to become basically factory workers. I mean, that's basically what our entire school system is based off of. Like, back in the industrial age, they didn't need fucking scholars. They
yeah,
needed people to work the factories, and what the quickest and easiest way to get factory workers was to put them all in schools and a cover up is, oh yeah, we're raising you to be your own individuals, which really you're not. You know what I mean? A lot of our uh like a lot of our teaching methods, especially older ones, are just meant to like almost give you like almost a hive mind mentality. You know what I mean? Just wake up at a certain time, you go to a certain place, you stay there for 7 to 8 hours, you go home.
Yeah.
That's that. I mean, that's what school is. You know what I mean? But what was I gonna say? Something about school.
School is basically work way.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But homework, homework was originally designed to be a punishment, not something required. Which I found that crazy when I first learned that. I found that crazy to be because like at least now it tapered off during middle and high school. It became more of like, oh, if you didn't finish, just go home and do it. But like especially in elementary school, we had a lot of homework. I don't know if that was for you, but
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like if it was originally meant to be a punishment, why are you making kids who are in the pretty much the most creative and like just they just want to have fun moment of their lives? You know, I mean, we had recess and everything. Why would you give them the homework? You know what I mean? I feel like homework at the very least, if we even though it's meant to be a punishment, it should have been more gravitated to older kids. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If that makes sense. Which it was just bizarre to me that we would give that out, even though it was meant to be a punishment, and we would require it. You would get your passing of school would be determined on if you could complete homework, complete your work. Which even the grading system itself is just stupid. You're placing the so-called intelligence of these kids off of measurable stats, you know, or
Yeah.
measure things that are not correctly measured,
Yeah.
not correctly taken care of, which in reality is just not true.
Yeah.
Intelligence, in my opinion, cannot be measured by, 2 plus 2.
Yeah.
It's it it's your creative ability to like solve problems, you know what I mean? Like come up with solutions to everyday life, you know what I mean? Like basically your IQ. Your IQ and your intelligent your grade in school are two different things.
Yeah.
You people who with like the greatest IQs ever more than likely to be worse in school just because it's yeah. Like didn't he do pretty bad in school? I don't
He
know.
did terrible in school. He
Yeah.
hated school.
Yeah, because like it's just they're forced to conform to this pre-made plan for them. You know what I mean? When in
Yeah.
reality they're creative. They like to solve things on their own. You know what I mean? They like to come up with their own solutions. And that our school system just it frowns upon that. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's another issue with society is the fact that the school system has been around since I think 1913 or 1912
Yeah.
and hasn't been changed.
No.
Like people like you can't just raise factory workers now. Kids are exposed to too much.
The
Like
internet.
like the biggest question you get in class now, if you're in like algebra 2 or like physics or like ELA 3, whatever,
Hmm.
it's like, when are we going to use this in real life? Why are we learning about George Washington right now,
Yeah.
dude? Like, how is this going to help me get a job? Like it doesn't like that's like the biggest, and I think the reason why that's a question now is because people are on like they're online, they see that oh this is life. That you have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when they go to school, they realize that this doesn't apply to their life or what they want to do in life.
Hmm.
It doesn't apply at all to their life and it becomes useless to them in a way and they don't necessarily care about it. How many kids do you know are just passing?
Yeah.
Like I do my best in school just because I like to do my best.
Pretty much everybody. Even I wasn't just passing. I did a little better because, and at least in Milford, I don't know about other schools, but like it's just you can literally just attend and still pass. I knew a kid that missed like the entirety of second semester our senior year. They missed the entirety of the second semester except for like a couple days,
Hmm.
but the counselor let him pass because he turned in a couple papers at the end.
Yeah,
They literally just try to get you out.
yeah,
You know what I mean? They try to pass you. Like I don't even Mr. Lamont, like he's probably the best teacher in that school. You know what I
one
mean?
of the best, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a genius. You know what I mean? But even then, he's like at the end of the day, he just wants you to pass,
yeah,
and he does the best example of how that can be used in a good way.
yeah,
Like like I know too many English teachers at the very least, just my experience, that just like give you a pamphlet, and if you don't do it well, they'll like, oh, just do it again.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But at least at least he makes it to where if you do bad on it, he's like, all right, let's go over it. Let's explain why
yeah,
you did it bad, and then you do it again. You're like, you do better. You're like, oh,
yeah,
I learned something there. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So it's just I feel like it also comes down to the teachers themselves.
yeah.
I feel like at least in Milford, there's just too many teachers that are not motivated to teach.
Hmm.
They're just there by happenstance.
Yeah,
I see that the most in the gym teachers there. Like
yeah,
almost every year, there's another gym teacher.
yeah.
They're just there for like a paycheck, quick paycheck. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And what really let me into that line of thought was my senior English teacher. His name was Mr. Fry, and he was telling us about how he didn't even go to college to be a teacher. He wanted to be a poet or something, but since it's an English credit, he got the job.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of our educators, people we entrust to teach our children, are just people who are there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just speaks volumes about how our school system is and how our society is. We just do everything for a paycheck.
Well, I agree with that 100% because a lot of, like you said, a lot of teachers are just there for a paycheck. They're just
Mhm.
there to get by in life.
Yeah.
And you can tell that when they're teaching. They're not invested into the content. They're not invested into what they're teaching. They're just there handing out work. They're there putting on videos. This is how you do it, blah, 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 blah. And if they
Mhm.
are explaining it, they're not explaining it with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm. They're just sitting there, drumming on, off of 10 cups of coffee. They might
Hand you
go
a
out.
packet, tell you
Yeah,
to read that, you know what I mean?
exactly. It's terrible in a sense, but then there's the teachers that want to be there.
Mhm.
Like Mr. Larmont, I have a sense that he likes teaching physics.
No, he does.
He likes, he that's why he explains it so in depthly. That's why he goes over it with students because I have a sense that he likes to teach in a way. He likes to do the goofy experiments. He
Mhm.
likes to be there. I have a you say something?
Oh, no, I was gonna say the only reason I really like him is because if he doesn't know something, he'll let you know,
Yeah,
and then he'll help you find out the answer.
yeah.
I love that about him. Anyway, continue. My fault.
Right. A lot of teachers think they know it all as well.
Hmm.
Even the ones that aren't necessarily educated, even
Yeah.
the ones that are just like they're just there for a paycheck, they almost have a sense of like I'm a teacher, I'm an adult, I know more than you.
Yeah.
When in a sense that is true. They have been on this earth a lot longer than us.
Hmm.
They're much more wiser than us. But with Mr. Larmon, you actually see how much a teacher really doesn't know.
Yeah.
Because most of the time he's like, "Oh, I don't know. Let's find out."
Hmm.
And that's a good indicator of a good teacher. I have a teacher that's almost like in the middle. I have a teacher who he was an engineer. He made bank being an engineer,
Yeah.
and he's living good now. And he decided, what am I going to do with these skills? I'm living great. So he decided he's going to be a teacher because he likes to teach,
Yeah.
right? He teaches pretty well. If you get in his face, you're like, yo, how do I do this? He's up there teaching.
Hmm.
But if the class is like, talking or, distracted, doing their thing, he's just like, blah. But then if you actually get him to come over to your computer and teach you, he's right there and on it. But he also has that kind of perspective of like, I know more than you.
Yeah.
Which to a point he does though, because he's an actual engineer. He's an
Hmm.
engineer for like 12 years. He does know a lot more than us when it comes to engineering software.
Yeah.
So I'd give him credit that way. And I also have another teacher. She's the new business teacher in Milford. She's just like Mr. Lermont when it comes to not knowing things. She will 100% sit there, Google the answer with you, try and find a good website like a .gov or a .org,
Yeah.
and she'll try and go on there and we'll try and figure out the answer together. And the only thing is she's very strict and she gives out tons of work, but I like that about her. It's
Yeah.
almost like she's disciplined.
Well, you said it's a business class, right?
Yeah,
So I feel like that you have to kind of expect that if through business. So
yeah.
that makes sense.
And I just like the way she teaches, and teachers like that make school fun. They make school like, okay, I'm going to go here, I'm going to learn something.
Yeah.
Not necessarily entertained in a watching TV show type of way. But I want to be entertained in the fact that I'm doing something.
Hmm.
I'm not just sitting there on my phone bored, or I'm not just sitting there, like doing math problems that I'm not even going to need when I'm 25 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you have a purpose. You're there for a purpose. And I feel like that's the good thing with Milford is they have a pathway.
Hmm.
My older school didn't have that. My older school was just like, pick a class, do your class.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. But like Milford, it's like you have a pathway. You can pick something that you want to pursue in life.
And
Now,
you can have multiple pathways. I feel like that's also good. You can pursue multiple interests.
yeah.
Yeah. And back to what you're saying with like the excited to go to the class. I can't tell you how many times I was looking forward because I had Mr. Lamont at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I enjoy this class so much. I would like, you know how you would like kind of plan out your class, like, okay, I have this class, it's boring, but then you have this class, and you look forward to certain classes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lamont was one of them, like, especially when he did the our potato cannon.
Yeah.
That was just, I don't know, it was just seeing him build it, and then like just us using it, also understanding the physics behind it. We were like just trying to make whatchamacallit, data sheets off it. You know what I mean? That was his main point. That was what he was trying to teach us: data sheets, how to create them, how to use them. And he did that through a whole multitude of experience. But my favorite was obviously potato cannon because it's a potato cannon. You know what I mean? We shot apples out of it up in the sky. It was like they went like 50 feet in the air. But he showed us all this, and then like it's one of the few things that actually stuck with me through school. I know how to like set up a data sheet. I know how to calculate acceleration, all that stuff. And that's like,
Yeah.
I feel like even though what I want to pursue in life is not necessarily that, it's still something that I could still find great use in.
Yeah.
Just because I know it now, it's in my brain. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's locked in there. But what was we gonna say?
Well, it's the same, pretty much the same thing. You
Mhm.
know, I feel like the reason that I could be wrong, but the reason why you retain that information so well is because it was fun to a point.
Yeah.
It was you enjoyed the experience and you used it to further yourself in life. And I feel like schools nowadays just don't do that.
Mhm.
Like they're not looking to educate people on what they want to do in life. They're educating people on what society wants them to do or what the government needs them to do, not necessarily
Yeah.
the government, but what corporations need them to do. And I feel like that harkens back to the corruption in our society is the fact that the reason why we're not changing the school system is people don't want it to change. People who own large corporations like Vanguard or BlackRock,
Mhm.
they need the workers. They need the factory workers. They need
Yeah.
the computer workers. They need those people to function. And eventually they might not because of AI. But right now they still do. AI hasn't gotten to that point to where it could take that many people's jobs. And if you have 20 entrepreneurs in one class and each of them is going to create their own business using AI, that would put out BlackRock
Yeah.
because BlackRock would have to buy them out. But if they're a young entrepreneur and they want their own business and they can use robotics or AI to build them rather than using other individuals, other people, they could put BlackRock out of business
Mhm.
because BlackRock can't use them as a worker. These people might get so big that they could take out BlackRock.
Yeah.
Like this is like out there because BlackRock is one of the biggest corporations in the world.
It's gonna take a little bit to topple them.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like that's one of the main reasons why they don't want people to educate themselves like that. It's
Mhm.
because it could crumble out big corporations. It could take them right down.
Yeah.
And I guess to get ready to wrap this up because we've been talking for a while. But I feel like at the end of the day, when it comes to equal rights, when it comes to society, when it comes to corruption in politics, comes to addiction, um, I feel like it harkens back to the self. It
Mhm.
harkens back to what each individual person is doing,
Like human nature.
human nature. And it's our job to fight against the animalistic side of ourselves, the selfishness, the impurity, the anger. You know, it's up to us to fight against that and
Mhm.
to go with what we truly want, to consciously make an effort to do the next right thing for ourselves and for others around us,
Yeah.
rather than just going with what we want to do.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is your feelings are justified, but your actions are not. Like I feel like that can be interpreted in a multitude of ways, but how I interpret it is it isn't like you can feel however you want to feel about a situation. You can think your own thoughts. No one's gonna stop you. That's something innate to you. You know what I mean? No one can take that away from you.
Yeah.
But how you act upon those things, how you go about them, how you take action, that is like what makes you. That is what you present to people. That is what makes you in their eyes. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? So
What makes you you?
yeah, how you act, how you bring forth the thoughts that you think into reality. You know what I mean? That is what a human is. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know.
I guess that's the end of episode 1 of the Catatonic, or the, I don't even know how the Catatonic Podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice shit. All right.
All right. See y'all.
Uh,